Top stories of the day, such as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, saying on Tuesday that it has deported more than 500 people and arrested more than 400 suspected undocumented immigrants as part of a week-long operation here in the Houston area. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. Houston will soon have the nation's largest and most comprehensive cancer center focused exclusively on children. You won't want to miss a conversation with the key visionaries behind this mission to end childhood cancer.
Plus, Houston Chronicle reporter Abby Church discusses the city's legal battle over the minority business program.
And as Frank and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call or shoot us a text at 713-440-8870.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Supreme Court is weighing President Trump's challenge to birthright citizenship, the constitutional provision that guarantees citizenship to babies born in the United States. The case could determine how much power federal courts have to block President Trump's agenda to further restrict immigrant rights.
This is not a hypothetical. This is happening out there, right? Every court has ruled against you.
We've only had snap judgments on the merits. Obviously, we're fully briefing the merits in the courts of appeals, and our arguments are compelling.
Today, Justice Selena Kagan questioned Solicitor General John Sauer's defense of the Trump administration's case. NPR's Susan Davis reports on how this case factors into the president's broader agenda.
I mean, President Trump also, I think it's been a clear directive of his presidency that part of what he's doing is trying to expand the boundaries of presidential power. And it's hard not to see this executive order within that scope of getting to rewrite the Constitution.
That's NPR's Susan Davis reporting. President Trump has spoken to U.S. troops stationed at a major air base in Qatar. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Trump made the stop before he traveled on to the United Arab Emirates.
The Al Udeid Air Base just southwest of Doha is the largest U.S. military facility in the Middle East, housing thousands of U.S. troops.
No visit in the Gulf would be complete without stopping to salute the people who keep America safe, strong, and free.
Trump regaled the troops with a campaign-style speech with lots of stories from his time in office, including his efforts to end diversity programs. The president is on a 4-day tour of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, mixing some business deals with diplomacy as the administration works with the region to try and end conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. Franco Ordonez, Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar.
The Federal Aviation Administration says a hotline between the Pentagon and the air traffic control tower at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport has not worked since 2022. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports the revelation came after a mid-air collision near the airport killed 67 people recently.
An FAA official confirmed that the hotline between the Pentagon and the airport doesn't work, but that the FAA wasn't aware of that before the January collision. The official said the FAA was insisting it be brought back online before the military resumed flights out of the Pentagon, which were paused after another Black Hawk helicopter got too close to two commercial planes. The FAA says a direct access line was out due to the construction of a new tower at the Pentagon, but that the two facilities coordinate by phone. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 136 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. A bill to ban child marriages in Texas has passed the House and is on its way to the Senate. News 88.7's government reporter Andrew Schneider says the measure would also void any marriages for people currently under 18.
House Bill 168 would close a loophole that lets children as young as 16 marry if they are legally emancipated. Houston Representative John Rosenthal, the bill's author, told a subcommittee that practice has led to widespread abuses.
There are instances of severe age gaps of these emancipated minors, 10, 20, or even 30 years of age difference between them.
Becca Powell of the nonprofit Unchained at Last was more blunt.
Sex with a 16-year-old is a crime if the perpetrator falls out of the close in age exception, unless the perpetrator first marries the minor. Therefore, a marriage license involving a 16-year-old and a spouse outside the close in age exception is a get-out-of-jail-free card for a would-be child rapist.
The bill passed the House by a vote of 87 to 48. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
Metro Vanpool service abruptly stopped Wednesday morning, leaving drivers and riders scrambling for a way to work. News 88.7's Tom Perumian explains.
A cryptic message around 4:30 a.m. informed Vanpool drivers to find an alternative. The issue began with the Vanpool vehicle provider messaging each driver about a lapse in required liability insurance documentation. Vanpool drivers were told to not even move their vans. The notice recommended van drivers use Lyft to get back home to pick up their own cars. In a release, Metro stated it was their decision to suspend Vanpool service until the matter is fully resolved. Meanwhile, Metro is actively working with the contractor to address the issue and says it will resume service only when liability insurance has been reinstated. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
And coming up within the hour, city officials will be gathering at a downtown Harris County building to name it after the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. The 17-story building is located at 1111 Fannin Street. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello, Frank.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you today? We're almost there.
We're almost there. Thursday, my Friday Eve.
Your Friday Eve. Your post-hump day.
My post-hump day.
And Ernie's vacation day again.
And Ernie's vacay day.
He's here in spirit. If you go to YouTube, you can see he's not here. I went to the dermatologist yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't think you're at this age yet.
You'd be surprised.
I have that good old Scottish skin that everybody wants.
Yeah.
And so he always does a number on me and just gets all these precancerous places.
Yes.
And he literally said, well, you're on radio, so you don't have to be on TV anymore. And you don't even have to wear makeup. And I said, well, we're on YouTube.
That's right.
Every day.
That's right. Go to our YouTube.
There's my camera right there.
Right there. You can check out Frank's beautiful skin.
You go to hellohouston.org.
Yes, you can go to hellohouston.org or you can go to our youtube.com/Houston Public Media, and we are there. If there's something that you've missed, you can also check out any interviews that we've done.
They put the camera on the empty chair.
And you can see that Ernie's not here.
Well, or you're the viewer. That's the viewer's chair right there. Anyway,
the viewer's chair. But be sure to like and subscribe. And you can also check us out on Instagram. Go to hellohouston.show and follow us.
Yes, we meet you where you are.
That's right.
And if you're on the radio, don't text and drive.
Don't text and drive. But if you have a moment, do join the conversation and pick up that phone and give us a call, 713-440-8870. And you can also text that number, which that's a new feature as well, that we love receiving y'all's texts.
I know, and we get a lot of them.
We do.
So we try to get to everybody who gives us feedback. But sometimes we're swamped with calls, but we try there too. So,
yeah.
But we want to hear from you. This is your show as much as it is ours.
That's
and it's
right.
your heat as much as it is mine.
Tell
So I remember I was talking to you about this yesterday. I looked back at the different years where we've had these really hot summers. And old timers like myself, but believe it or not, will remember 1980. That's when we were on the national news because we were putting ice in our swimming pools.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that from 1980. So that was a horrible summer. And then it was beaten by 1998, which was another horribly hot summer. Yeah. And then everybody remembers 2011 because of the drought.
Yes, the
you
drought.
remember that,
Yeah.
right? A tenth of all our trees, 500,000 out of 5 billion trees across Texas died. It was terrible. Then 2022 was pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right, this May that we are having is hotter than 1980's May, 1998's May, or 2011's May. The May we are in right now is more comparative to 2022. And that you'll remember when we had the hottest July that we've ever had, the hottest June that we've ever had. We had we were almost at 100 days, just like 2011, of 100-degree days, almost like 2011. Because I remember counting them. I was doing a whole countdown on Channel 2. And it was insufferable, but this is right now shaping up to be very similar to that.
But, Frank, I find that a little deceiving because we just had this cool front and we were coming out of this beautiful weather.
Right.
So how do they calculate that? And is it just based on days?
The high pressure from the west that pushes that cooler air down from the Rockies then settles over us as a heat dome. So what your friend yesterday is not your friend tomorrow.
That's right.
So get ready for it.
Get ready for it. And you know what? We're getting ready for a fabulous rest of the show coming up this hour. Yesterday, I was able to speak with Nancy and Rich Kinder about an incredible movement to end childhood cancer that's going to be coming to Houston right here in our city. But first,
$150 million.
$150 million. But first, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on Tuesday said it has deported more than 500 people and arrested more than 400 suspected undocumented immigrants as part of a week-long operation in the Houston area alone. The Department of Homeland Security didn't list the type of crimes the people were convicted of or the type of immigration violations they are accused of, but it did highlight 5 cases of immigrants who were arrested, including 2 with homicide convictions and 1 convicted of sexual exploitation of a minor. It's unclear whether this is the largest ICE operation in Texas under the Trump administration. The federal government does not publicly release data on arrests or removals consistently. Are you happy with the work that ICE is doing right here in Texas? Does more or less need to be done? Give us a call or shoot us a text, 713-440-8870. What do you think, Frank?
I looked at the links to this story, and the people that they have deported are pretty bad people. I mean, right. I of course looked for due process because that's one of the things that I always look for, and they are claiming that due process is happening, saying that the due process happening in as few as 24 to 72 hours. It's a very fast due process, and I would like to know the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Is it because even immigration officers, from what I understand, can act as judge and jury on these due processes?
Yeah.
So is an immigration officer saying, I've looked at your record, you're here illegally, you've been convicted in other countries of this, you've been convicted in this country of this, and as the judge and jury, I'm deporting you. I don't know that. It reads that way from what I'm saying.
The questions that you're bringing up, I think, are very valid because it is very hard to understand how much has changed under the Trump administration when it comes to ICE compared to the Biden administration. I mean, I have a lot of questions, and this is just a reminder that we from the left or the right have to come at these things with a certain amount of critical thinking. And are these types of deportation, some of my thoughts are, is this just business as usual? Were these things happening under the Biden administration? Is there actual structural changes that are happening on how ICE is managing deportations? Without consistent public data sharing from our federal government, this is all speculation. They are just saying this. And were these immigrants convicted in their home country or were they convicted in the United States of America? That's also a big question. How could someone be convicted of homicide and just be living free here in Houston?
Well, an Operation Lone Star was under Biden. It was going on from 2022, even 2021. Mm-hmm. And so this has been happening. What really gets me is the math. 500 people deported in 1 week. Just the math for due process on that.
Right.
That's a lot of people that have been in front of somebody to give them due process. And I just wonder if it's being rubber stamped due process. Because due process can take 3 years in this country. I mean, really, if you get a lawyer and you go to the court system and you have people testifying on your behalf, it can take a long time, not 500 deportations in 1 week.
500 in 1 week. You also have to look at that from just a basic logistics standpoint. Were they bused home? Were they flown home? That sounds like a lot. But again, we invite you to join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Steve in Cyprus joins us now on the deportation process. Welcome to Hello Houston, Steve.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I wanted to say something about each of the 2 points you've talked about so far. With regard to due process, there is not one umbrella due process. There are various processes to which individuals are subject depending on their status. Are they citizens? Are they here illegally? Are they here on student visas? There's different processes for everything, and I feel like it's disingenuous when people just scream due process, due process, due process. And as far as the question about the differences between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, the biggest difference is Trump is enforcing the law. Biden did not.
That's fair.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for joining the conversation. Again, you can give us a call at 713-440-8870.
And I appreciate the lesson on due process. He makes a very good point. There are different types of due process, but at the same time, just I would like personally to know more about it. I don't want to just see a rubber stamp due process, because that's when people that deserve more elevated due process fall through the cracks.
Yep.
If you do it too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes a very good point. I think Travis is on the line also.
Yes, Travis in Pearland. What is your comment or question?
Hi,
Travis.
Hi, thanks for having me. And I very much need to push back against what Steve said and what Frank is agreeing with. There are not different types of due process for different people. It is a Supreme Court statute that illegal immigrants are still afforded due process. And the reason they do that is because any of these 500 people who were picked up off the streets could easily be citizens. And the way we define whether they are citizens or not is by putting them through the court so that we can prove that they are given the rights that they are given. But this is a blatant fascist tactic. We have mass jackboot troopers breaking into people's houses, arresting them, putting them never in front of a judge, and disappearing them from this country.
Right. Immigration officers can act as judge and jury on this, from what I read.
Say again?
The immigration officer who makes the arrest can also act as judge and jury for due process on some of these people. This is what I read.
It might be what you read. The Constitution disagrees with you.
No, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's what's happening.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's not how justice is supposed to work in this system.
Right.
The way that you and I are protected by the Constitution is because every dirtbag that gets picked up by the police is given the same rights that you and I are. We are allowed lawyers to defend ourselves. We are allowed to see our accusers. We are allowed to present evidence in our own defense.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Travis,
much.
for joining us.
That's what I mean. Digging into this, it's hard to see how 500 people were deported in 1 week.
And just to define, due process refers to the constitutional requirement that the government act fairly and according to established legal rules and principles when taking actions that affect a person's life, liberty, or property. This principle ensures individuals are treated fairly and have the opportunity to defend their rights in legal proceedings.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on.
Yep.
This is kind of, I don't know. To me, this is a red herring. But the top House Democrats Wednesday are joining Republicans in blocking any House-wide vote on impeaching President Donald Trump. There's this one person in Congress. It's a House Democratic Caucus Chair, Pete Aguilar from California, called the push by one lawmaker within his caucus a distraction. It's not him, but there's one person that is saying he wants to impeach Trump. Now, Representative Al Green has also said the same thing, but he didn't make any formal push for this. The push was made in such a way that they had by Sri Thinadar of Michigan, and he invoked a maneuver which is called privilege, that you have to vote on this within 2 House working days. And so this guy stood up and said, I want to impeach President Trump. You have 2 days to vote on this. I think that this is a distraction from something else. I'm not sure what, but that for one Democrat to stand up seems like a waste of time.
Is the impeachment threat something that should be used, or does it hurt the Democrats? Give us a call, 713-44-8870. I agree. I think the impeachment threat is wasted energy on both sides. Republicans and Democrats need to be looking at productive and beneficial legislation.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it smells of sour grapes from the Democrats, and they should focus on dealing with the tax bill and how they plan to develop clear messaging to the public.
And you have to be realistic about what's going to work.
And what's going to work.
Yeah.
And, you know, President Trump, he's been in this seat now, been the president for 100 days, right? And we're already using the word impeachment. Feels a little tired.
I agree.
Feels a little tired.
Let's get back to the immigration issue that we were just talking about, because we are trying to get a handle on this. Josh in River Oaks is on the line. Josh, what's your take on this?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just had a comment about it to just mention that the people who are immigrants are people, and that Texas used to be a part of Mexico, and that, while we might have scribbled a little line in the dirt a long time ago after we won the war, this land may still be considered stolen, and these people are immigrants and real people that,
Fair.
Aside from the ones that have committed crimes, egregious crimes, a lot of them are just actual people who are looking for, an opportunity that we are so proud to offer over here in America.
Right, Josh, and you don't really know if the crime they committed, did they really commit it? I mean, were they hung out to dry by a judge in some Central American country and sent through the system in the right way that we would normally think of justice? You don't really know that. So I think this is why it can take 3 years for a trial to really occur, and doing a deeper dive into a person's history than just saying, oh, well, they were convicted in this country of stealing or whatever. They were, but were they guilty? Because justice in other countries is very different. Very different.
That's right. And again, we want to invite you to the conversation. 713-440-8870. Wayne from South Park is on the line about due process. Hi, Wayne. Welcome to Hello Houston.
How y'all doing today?
Good, sir.
Wayne.
Hey.
Well, I just wanted to say those immigrants are receiving due process. The president has executive power and executive authority afforded to him by the Constitution, so he can deputize an ICE agent, deputize an immigration lawyer, and get him full authority through his constitutional power. So they are receiving due process. The Constitution affords the president those powers, and I can't see how lower judges can block a presidential executive order. We got 600 judges around the country blocking executive power. So they are receiving due process, due executive power from the president. He can nominate an ICE agent or immigration judge.
Thank you, Wayne, for joining the conversation.
And if you're just joining us at all, we've been talking about the fact that in a week, 500 deportations and 400 arrests were made down in South Texas by Texas border agents, and
here in the Houston area.
And I brought up the question. How do you deport 500 people without due process? And there's been some talk from our listeners that
a lot of questioning about the definition of due process
and who gets it
and where the power lies. Is it within the executive branch through executive order, or is it handled in the judiciary branch?
And apparently an ICE agent can actually become a judge and jury on these people pretty immediately. But for 500 people to be deported and all have due process within 1 week, that seems pretty fast.
And we did have a University of Houston law professor, Seth Chandler, on this week talking very specifically about this. And you can find that on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and some of our past interviews about this specific topic. And again, we invite you to the conversation, 713-440-8870.
Yep.
Angel.
We have another caller. I don't know if it's Angel or Angel.
Angel or Angel
in Spring.
Yes, how are you?
Hi, Angel. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you for taking it.
What do you have to say?
No, I just disagree totally with the premise everybody's trying to discuss due processes, and they're wasting time in the courts trying to get everybody support. I'm an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, and my whole family is, and I don't have not one family living in the Dominican Republic anymore. But like my kids are serving the service, are serving the service. As soon as you cross the border or anything, and you don't come to this country illegally, you're already broken the law. And you don't assume that we got to waste all this time and tax money and everything just to get somebody deported when they have broken the law. That's what I'm trying to say. I know it feels bad to say stuff like that, but if there are people who want to come over here to work, but I just believe like the president, get in line and do it the right way.
Thank you, Angel, for joining the conversation. You know, Angel brings up a point. You know, this was President Trump's main running, efforts on policy. And when it comes to immigration, a lot of people felt that the Biden administration was very easy. There was a lot of talk about open borders. And now we have a president who is
the first Trump administration building a wall was not exactly successful on this issue.
And I think they figured that out.
Well, and certainly they've recapitulated.
That's right.
That's for sure.
That's right. And we have a call from Hector in Missouri City.
Yeah, hello. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hi,
What's
Hector.
up?
And I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Oh,
It kind of ticks me off, but I enjoy the show. But anyway, I got to tell you something.
Keep it PG, Hector.
My
Keep
skin
it
is
PG.
brown. My skin is no other color than brown. You're telling me what I'm hearing is, well, I better not go down to Walmart and get my pickup truck, go down to Walmart, because if ICE stops me, they're not going to give me the opportunity to prove that I'm an American citizen. And my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents were born here. You know?
That's a very fair. That is very fair. And Hector, we've discussed this that arrest at courthouses and outside of courtrooms that just discourages people who have legitimate reason to go to court from going there. The Garcia that we've talked about incessantly, he was picked up because he was going to pick up his son, his autistic son, from school. And that's where ICE agents grabbed him. So you're right. If it's putting the fear in people of color that they don't want to go anywhere because anywhere they go, they might be picked up legally or illegally by ICE agents and not given fair due process, that's a very big concern we have to address in this country.
And again, 713-440-8870 to join the conversation. Jay from Pearland, who actually works for the government. Jay, welcome to Hello Houston.
Enlighten us.
Talk to us, Jay.
Disguise my name and my voice. But anyway, it's Section 235 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 235 of the INA. 235 INA provides a CBP officer to authority, basically any kind of non-citizen who lack proper entry documents, or they seek the entry through like fraud or misrepresentation. Basically, we can, what they call is expedite removal them from the United States.
So they don't really get much due process. It just says, they just say, hey, you're here illegally, you're going back.
If they have entered the country legally, whether it's through fraud or entry, whatever, it's called expedited removal. This has been in, that INA 235 Act has been in effect for like 100 years.
Mm. Well, thank you, Jay, for calling. This is very important information, and we could not have heard that without you all engaging with us, giving us a call.
Yep.
It is fantastic, and truly what makes Hello Houston unique and special within Houston is the fact that you all are so knowledgeable, and give us a call and let us know what y'all are thinking from both sides. We clearly heard from both. But coming up next, Houston will soon have the nation's largest and most comprehensive cancer center focused exclusively on children. You won't want to miss a conversation with the key visionaries behind this mission to end childhood cancer. And we continue to take your calls on today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
I'm Christopher Kimball from Milk Street Radio. The job of a restaurant designer is much bigger than just picking out tablecloths and furniture.
And the reality is, so much of the money, such a high percentage of it, is in everything that the public doesn't see.
How David Rockwell designs your dinner, this week on Milk Street Radio from PRX.
You can hear that Sunday at 1 p.m.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months.
Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest. And if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you and will pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Burns, and I'm thrilled to invite you to a special evening with Houston Public Media. On June 5th, join me at the Hobby Center as we preview our latest series set to release this November.
Tickets available at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support comes from DePelchin Children's Center. May is National Foster Care Awareness Month, and DePelchin is celebrating the foster parents who ensure that Houston area children are part of safe and loving families. Learn more at depelchin.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Specs, celebrating and focusing on tequila for sipping, margaritas, and more throughout the month of May. Recipes and more at specsonline.com. The fun starts here.
Support comes from LaPorte CPAs and Business Advisors, an independent accounting and business advisory firm serving clients for more than 75 years. With 190 employees across offices in Houston, New Orleans, and other locations. More information at laporte.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Two Texas medical institutions are celebrating a transformational gift today that will help create a brand new cancer center for kids. The Kinder Children's Cancer Center will be built in the Texas Medical Center and be a joint venture between MD Anderson Cancer Center and Texas Children's Hospital. The collaboration got a huge boost with the announcement late yesterday that the Kinder Foundation has donated $150 million to get this effort started.
Well, this started when we got a call from Park Shaper, who's chairman of the board of Texas Children's, and said, this is something we think you might be interested in. And it seemed to be of interest. And so we had a meeting with Park and Peter Pisters, the head of MD Anderson, and Debbie Sulkin, the head of Texas Children's. And it became very intriguing very quickly. Our foundation, which we've had for about a quarter century now, really concentrates on transformational gifts in the Houston area. We've emphasized urban green space, education, and quality of life. And this was a perfect fit of quality of life. If we can do something in a small way to help cure children's cancer, my goodness, what a wonderful thing that would be. And the collaboration of these two great institutions just really appealed to us.
Did you have anything you really wanted to ensure was included in this joint venture?
Well, I think the thing that interested us was that what you're doing is bringing together the world's leading cancer hospital with one of the world's leading children's hospitals, and we just thought that was a unique combination. And then the fact that they want to not only combine their efforts but have a brand new center which would be tailored to serve young patients. We were educated a little bit. In no way would we ever try to pose as experts in this field, but apparently you really need to separate children who are afflicted with cancer from adults. And so having a whole special center which caters to them, we think it will have playgrounds and that kind of thing that will be friendly to a child who's going through a terrible situation. So the whole thing with the whole new building just made a lot of sense to us.
And Celeste, I've been on the board of visitors for MD Anderson for 2 decades, so we really were waiting for the right moment to do something for MD Anderson, and this really seemed like the right moment.
That's right. And Nancy, what is it like to have your name associated with a cancer dedicated to ending cancer in children?
I think it's just mind-boggling that if that could really happen and we had a very small part in that, then that's what we would think transformational means for us.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like there's a nice mix between cancer treatment and research with this new collaboration. Why and how important was that for you all to make sure that a child or a family had a complete team from diagnosis to potentially surgery? What does that mean, you're putting all of these efforts in one?
Well, I think you're doing two things. You're pointing out correctly that, of course, the primary thing will be to treat children who have been diagnosed with cancer. But beyond that, because you'll be concentrating so much expertise in this one center, should be able to lead to tremendous strides in research that's specific to pediatric oncology. Just as, MD Anderson has doctors won a Nobel Prize for developing different treatments for particular types of cancer. And I think you're going to see, we hope you'll see the same kind of advances specific to children's cancer in this new center.
This new building is right from Texas Children's, and it's connected by a skywalk. It's just very convenient, and we're very excited about it.
Rich, you touched on this. Without a doubt, the Kinder Foundation gets many requests for funding of various projects. Was this one kind of a no-brainer when Dr. Peter Pisters from MD Anderson and Debbie Sukin from Texas Children's approached you about this project?
Well, I would not say it was a no-brainer. Philanthropy, we believe, is a lot like business. You need to look carefully at the projected outcome. We look very carefully at any investment.
And so it's on our website. It says that we don't accept any proposal. So we are very protective of who we see, so we don't get a lot of requests. And so, again, we knew Park Schaefer very well, trusted him, and with D. Anderson, it worked very well.
Right. I imagine that you would have to be very thoughtful in your approach and smart within these ventures and these partnerships. And there's a lot of trust that is built. Now, this is just the beginning of the project, and your generous donation is meant to encourage other donations for the project. What's your message to Houstonians about how important this project is?
Well, I think when you're talking about the possibility of really curing childhood cancer, I don't know anything that could be more important. And my message would be that, again, coming back to what I said about philanthropy, it's a gift, if it works well, is a bet on the people that are going to administer the money you give them. And I can't think of a better team than the combination of these two hospitals to spend money for a very good cause. And so I said to somebody, if you're talking about, is this a good bet? It's a damn good bet. And that's what I would say to other potential donors.
Rich, what are your thoughts on the philanthropic climate in Houston? Do you think we're doing a good job supporting organizations and efforts that deserve support, or do we have some work to do?
Well, I think we have some work to do, particularly in this kind of economic climate. But philanthropy in Houston is unusually generous for a large city. I think that people who have done well here in Houston tend to believe and understand that they need to give back to the city.
Rich and Nancy Kinder, thank you for your impact on Houston and the fight against childhood cancer. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today on Hello Houston.
And thank you, and congratulations.
Again, you just heard Nancy and Rich Kinder talking about the $150 million donation they made for a joint venture between MD Anderson Cancer Center and Texas Children's Hospital.
They are all over the place. Houston absolutely has benefited from their friendship and their love for the city. It knows no bounds, from HSPVA to Discovery Green to what they do for all of the arts and everything around.
It's incredible, and I think that you touched on that, the love for their city. I mean, to me, the conversation was just so matter of fact that yes, they approach everything very intentionally. They look over everything when they're looking at ways to improve the city. And one of the things that they said was to eradicate childhood cancer.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And what a goal.
That's right. And, we invite you to join the conversation. We've been having a lot of engagement regarding a topic that Frank and I were talking about earlier in regards to immigration. And, we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it in the next hour.
That's right. Coming up on Hello Houston, Houston Chronicle reporter Abby Church discusses the city's legal battle over the Minority Business Program. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
You know how important trusted news is for your ability to make informed decisions. That's why News 88.7 is your station.
At Houston Public Media, we give you the facts clearly and honestly so you can make decisions about your life.
Don't let anything stand in the way of your right to stay informed. Donate today to ensure that trusted news remains free and available for everyone in our community.
Give right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from the extended campus at UT Austin, seeking to help professionals and their organizations upskill, reskill, and stay ahead in an ever-changing work environment. More at extendedcampus.utexas.edu.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to McGovern Medical School and Dr. Charles Cox, who is focused on reversing brain damage with his patient's own stem cells. More about the many faces of UT Health Houston at uth.edu/many faces.
Support comes from the Near Northwest Management District, located just off 290 and the 610 Loop, with a mixture of modern and mid-century homes and businesses. More information at nnmd.org. At the intersection of innovation.
Support comes from Houston Chamber Choir, presenting Gather Round, the final concert of founder and artistic director Robert Simpson's 30-year tenure. Saturday, May 31st at St. Luke's Methodist Church. Tickets at houstonchamberchoir.org/radio.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Smart Financial Center in Sugar Land, presenting Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons with the Last Encores Tour, returning in concert Friday, May 23rd to Smart Financial Center. Tickets at smartfinancialcenter.net.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Welcome back.
Yeah, Ernie said we should say howdy, Houston. And I'm like, that's sort of A&M.
I don't like it. Yeah, that's not a vibe, Ernie.
I like A&M, but yeah.
Yeah.
You may have noticed if you're watching us on YouTube that Ernie is not here.
Ernie is not here.
But our next guest is.
Our next guest is
and
here.
we're getting lots of good comments on YouTube.
We're getting
tons of calls on this immigration issue.
That's right.
One of the YouTube comments was, are any of these callers lawyers? It would be good to clarify their points. And that is, and I know a lawyer, Ross Miller, who is an immigration attorney. We'll try to get him on.
Yes, we are going to try to get him on.
There's so many questions about immigration. Who is it, the judicial or the executive branch? Who has the authority here?
Right,
Can an immigration officer be the judge and jury?
Yeah.
And even if you come over illegal, do you still get some due process, or do you just get
or if
see you
illegal?
Later?
Yeah.
There's so many questions.
It is really complex.
Well, this is another complex issue
yes.
a bit. And so we have an expert here, Abby Church, to help figure it out with us. Welcome, Abby, to our show,
Houston.
our little show here at Hello Houston. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so let me clarify this. Last week, Houston City Council approved a disparity study to be used in a lawsuit that is seeking to end the city's minority business program. So first, the city's minority business program, if you're of color, if you're a woman, I think LGBTQ is also on that, then you get a special treatment, or you just get a seat at the table? What's your special treatment that you get if you're vying for a city contract?
So I wouldn't necessarily describe it as special treatment.
Okay.
So basically what this program is designed to do is just even the playing field for all people
Right,
trying
seat
to
at
do
the table.
businesses with the city. Right. So Anyone who is a minority, anyone who's a woman, they can apply for this program through the Minority Business Certification Program, and it'll just help certify your small business so you can do business with the city.
All right, so a couple from Spring, who's a white couple,
yes,
they've said, well, wait, this isn't fair. And I don't know what their business is. Perhaps you do.
They own a landscaping company.
Okay, so they want to landscape, I don't know, HISD schools or City Hall, or they want an opportunity to landscape some of these places that the city requires us to pay money to landscape. I don't blame them. They want to be, so what they're saying is this disparity program is hurting them as white people.
Yeah, so basically what they claimed in their lawsuit is that the city is doling out money based on race. And in their lawsuit, basically what they're trying to do is say that the program is unconstitutional. And if the court ends up upholding that ruling, then the city's Minority Business Certification Program would essentially be killed.
So we want to remind you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We are speaking about a disparity study and lawsuit against the city's Minority Business Program with Abby Church, the City Hall reporter at the Houston Chronicle.
So you said that the lawsuit claims that these contracts are being put out there by race, but it's also by gender. And as I mentioned, is it also LGBTQ?
I don't know off the top of my head. I wouldn't be surprised if that was
I know that's been a part of it because Kevin and I own a gym, so we don't landscape. We don't need any city contracts. So just to be clear, I'm not after any of this money. We just want you to come train and be a healthy person, right?
Right.
I guess my question also would be, does this imply that, or how effective has this program been in actually helping minority business owners?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so that is one of the reasons why they commissioned the disparity study. So just a little bit of background about the timing of the lawsuit and the disparity study. So the couple filed their lawsuit, and then simultaneously, it wasn't necessarily because of the lawsuit that they started this disparity study. It just so happened to happen at the same time. So the disparity study that they approved this past, or I guess it was a couple weeks ago now, that basically looks into how successful the program is in Houston, right? And that's why it's crucial to bring that into the lawsuit to prove, hey guys, this is something that's helping. But when you're looking at the results of that disparity study, it basically said that the city was meeting its requirements for contracting with Asian American small businesses in Houston and professional services, and also Hispanic small businesses in Houston. But kind of the flip side of that coin, so that result came back, and basically what the city decided to do was initially they were going to take Asian American businesses and Hispanic businesses out of this minority business contracting program because they thought, okay, we have contracted with these businesses enough. Like, we are giving ourselves a pat on the back. Like, this is basically us graduating them from this program. And in exchange, they were going to expand the Small Business Administration program to basically include more purchasing categories for Asian American and Hispanic owned businesses. But as you can imagine, this did not really hit the ears of Asian American business owners and Hispanic business owners very well.
What they were saying to them was, hey, you don't need this anymore. You're doing just fine.
Correct.
On your own. People love what you're doing, and you don't need any boost from us.
Yeah, basically that's what they were saying. But of course, when you say that to businesses that have historically not had adequate representation in Houston, they're like, you can't do that. What the heck, So
but isn't that what this white couple is saying? They're saying the same thing. They don't need to be in this program anymore. It's not fair to us.
Yeah, I need to go back and look at it. But yeah, they're just basically trying to say that they're doling it out based on race.
Right. Well, I guess just going back originally, why would these businesses need this to begin with? Because usually when programs are formed, there's a need. When you're walking in a park and you see a don't jump into the pond, it's because somebody probably has fallen into the pond. So why do you think these
Right.
So why was this program started to begin with? Why would these businesses need this?
Again, just as I said earlier, I mean, it's just to even the playing field for all businesses in Houston. And you have and especially this came up when we were having conversations about it at City Hall about why would you remove us from this program as the study initially recommended. It is just really hard for certain businesses to have the resources and have the representation in the city. So the program was just basically designed to make everything equal.
Well, Abby, we have a call, Abby, from Alvin in the 3rd Ward. Alvin, what's your question or comment for Abby?
Well, what I wanted to say is that my dad actually got one of these city contracts when I was in high school.
Uh-huh.
And what ended up happening was somebody from the city actually found him He had a small pressure washing business. He had absolutely no relationships or networking with the city. And so what was helpful was that city official was actually able to find him, vet his business, and get him ready for to participate in city contracts. And lastly, what I wanted to say is that most of these contracts actually go to prime contractors who are non-minority anyway, even to this day. What actually happens is that this certification allows businesses to become a part of the network that they're not already a part of because the prime contractors don't have a relationship with them. That's usually what is going on. And so these programs simply address the fact that they're not a part of the network, and it brings them into the network. It is not a giveaway.
So you think
actually have to perform.
Clearly, it's a good thing for your family, or was a good thing for your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it opened up all types of doors in understanding that there was another level of business that was happening that we were completely unaware of.
Right. Alvin, thank you for joining the conversation. So Abby, what did the disparity study find?
So the disparity study found that there was no longer disparity in providing Asian American businesses with professional service agreements, and it also found that there was no longer disparity in, I believe it was a construction category for Hispanic businesses.
But not to interrupt you, but were black businesses kept in this? Were they looked at?
Yeah, they were looked at as well. I believe there was still disparity there. There was also no longer disparity in non-professional service categories for women, I believe.
So it's kind of like everybody was put out of this except African Americans.
I wouldn't say that just off the top of my head. There were other service categories that they looked into. It went well beyond Hispanic, Asian, Black. There were a couple others in there as well, I believe.
So do you think that will the disparity study aid the city in this lawsuit?
So that's what the city attorney said. So basically, and this is like a whole other part of it too, but there was a lot of concern with the disparity study and the feedback that it got, especially in terms of when they were conducting it. So the disparity study went out to around 31,000 businesses in Houston, and only 800 participated in it. And if you're doing the math on that, that's about a 2.5% participation rate there. And of course, there's a difference between the data that they used and the responses that they got. Those were like two basically completely separate things. But a lot of people, when they were coming to City Hall, they were arguing, you guys didn't really do a really good job of seeking community feedback. And of course, the study pinged its way back to the administration. It was tagged a couple times. When you tag something at city council, that just means you delay it. That's the layman term there. But I always have to remember, I'm like, you can't speak in jargon to people. But yeah, so basically they went back and I attended a workshop for it. They've had like a whole bunch of community feedback over the course of the last like month or so. And basically what they ended up coming back was they accepted the results of the study, so the results didn't change, but they ended up doing away with the decision to remove Asian American and Hispanic businesses from those purchasing categories, and then they ended up broadening it instead, so kept them in the minority business contracting program, also expanded the small business administration program, and also added a veteran label. So if you are a veteran in Houston, you can also be added into the mix for this. But
and so would you say that those were based on recommendations listed in the study? Because once they did it, what were the actual recommendations for the study?
So the actual recommendations that came from the study were to remove Asian American and Hispanic businesses. Yes. So
because they were meeting their quota, essentially.
Yes, correct. So they ended up keeping them and then just basically expanding it. And I know Mayor Pro Tem Martha Castick-Statham, I think one of the things she said was we now have one of the most diverse minority business programs ever now with all of these new things. But that the reason that changed is basically because of the feedback that they had been getting from the community over the past month and a half or so, I believe. But just going back to your original question on whether or not this is going to help. I mean, this is something that the city attorney was really adamant that the city passed, right? Because there's a whole other layer of complication to this. The city hasn't had a disparity study in the last 20 years, right? Nearly 20 years. So the last one was completed in 2006. Wow. And there was another one that was done in 2016, but Mayor Turner's administration, they basically looked at it. They had some questions about the results of it, and they did not present it publicly, nor did they pass it by council. So had the disparity study not passed in 2023, and they didn't have this data available to them, they would have consequentially had to fall back on nearly 20-year-old data to help defend themselves in court.
Okay, so back to the white couple that's suing.
Yes.
So when does this go to trial?
So this is going to be going to court at the end of the year. I don't have a month exactly. That's just what I was told. But
And if they are successful, then does that just do away with this disparity program? Or?
Yeah, it would do away with the minority business contracting
that
program.
was like a bad thing to me.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's necessarily something that any business owner in Houston needs to worry about right now. I do think that it's something that people should be watching, especially given I know we've all seen everything that's happening in the federal government, and you see different cuts and similar fights that are kind of playing out at the federal level and now kind of locally too.
One more question. With these contracts, why don't they do a blind bid so that they don't know whether the person is white or black or brown or Asian? I mean, why don't they do that so that the contract is awarded based on what's the most financially effective thing for the city?
I don't know if there's a process like that in the city, but I just know that they have the regular contracting that they do. Then you also have an opportunity to be added in the mix for prime contractors.
I see.
Yeah. Are disparity studies common in, city developments, or is Houston at the forefront of looking at these type of issues?
I am not entirely sure. I can only speak for Houston, but I do think it's something that the city hasn't had one in a very long time. I mean, you're going from 2016, the last time you did it, to 2023, and there was a couple council members who actually mentioned that they were basically like, we should not be waiting another 20 years to see how exactly we're doing, because not only is this something that it shows where you're doing well, it can also reveal where there are other disparities in the city and where you need to be doing a better job, essentially. So I think we are probably going to be seeing another one of these sometime soon down the line. I don't think we're going to be waiting another 20 years for results of these again.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, and what can we expect? What is next in this process?
They are just going to court, and then we'll see what the court has to say. I'm sure that is probably going to be a pretty long and drawn-out process, and we'll be following it over at the Houston Chronicle until it's complete.
Yeah, this is your beat, right?
Oh, yes. Everything over at City Hall. It's always a busy time of the year.
Abby Church is the City Hall reporter for the Houston Chronicle. Abby, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much for having me. I appreciate
thanks for answering. We actually had someone ask about the veteran-owned companies. And you said they're part of it, right?
Very cool.
Yeah. So someone asked about that. So I'll tell you what, this immigration and due process discussion, I don't know, Abby, if you were listening outside in the waiting area, but this whole idea that 500 immigrants who were deported. So they came here presumably illegally.
500 people were arrested and 400 suspected undocumented immigrants as part of a week-long operation here in the Houston area.
Yeah, so 500 deported in just 1 week.
1 week.
And so we were talking about due process. And is it just a rubber stamp due process? Who has the authority? How long does it really take? Are you even entitled to due process if you came here illegally in the first place? Are you just and some say, yes, you are. Anyone here is entitled. And some people say they are, some people aren't. We're gonna get an immigration attorney on our show.
Yes, we are.
But
and we did get quite a few texts. Somebody texted and said they didn't follow due process to enter the country. Why are we required to give birth due process to put them out? We also received another text if you wanted to take that, Frank.
Yeah, this is what about the white South African refugees? I thought we wanted to slow immigration because they, as you know, were allowed very quickly to come into this country. And I think that last comment, we're going to talk more about if you are born in this country, do you automatically become a citizen?
Yep,
we're going to talk about that coming up. That's going to also get the phones ringing.
That's right. And somebody also texted legislators make the laws, judiciary interprets the law, president cannot empower the immigration department and take away power from other two branches of government. So you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Keep those comments coming.
And on YouTube, where if you were watching us there, you will see that Abby is with us right now and Ernie is not. But if he was, he would have a lot to say about this. But Dark One on YouTube says, from what I read, the immigration courts fall under the executive branch and not the judicial branch. So that's
right. So lots of
another
engagement.
take.
That's right.
But it's still a judgment, and who has the right to make the judgment? Is it an immigration officer that's been basically deputized and said, look over the file of this person, if they even have one, if they can't show you any documentation or papers, they're gone.
That's right, and we love our listeners and viewers. Keep those comments coming. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss a new study that found Houston is sinking faster than any other city in the country.
Like my career.
We'll hear from Dr. Peter W.T. Pisters, president of the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from St. Luke's Health and the St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org.
We'll see some sunshine later, the high 94. Heat index values as high as 101. It's 85, and this is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into the top stories of the day, such as the Trump administration challenging the constitutional provision that guarantees automatic citizenship to all babies born in the U.S. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. We'll then talk with Leonard Ohenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School, who joins us to talk about why Houston and other big cities are sinking.
Plus, we'll also hear from Dr. Peter W.T. Pisters, president of the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, who talks about the just-announced $150 million gift from the Kinder Foundation to create the Kinder Children's Cancer Center.
And we want to hear from you. So give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Supreme Court is weighing arguments surrounding the Trump administration's bid to end birthright citizenship. The case challenges the constitutional provision that guarantees automatic citizenship to all babies born on U.S. soil. Today, the arguments also focused on the question of whether federal district court judges can rule against the Trump administration on a nationwide basis. Jeremy Feigenbaum, New Jersey's Solicitor General, represents the state and local governments in the case.
Its argument that a single district court cannot decide birthright citizenship, or that we need more percolation on that question for the nation, overlooks that this court already settled this exact constitutional question 127 years ago, and that this EO is contrary to over a century of executive practice.
That's Jeremy Feigenbaum addressing the nation's top court. NPR's Joel Rose reports a new poll shows a majority of Americans oppose President Trump's push to end birthright citizenship.
The NPR Ipsos poll finds that fewer than a third of Americans want to end birthright citizenship. But the poll also finds that other parts of the White House's immigration crackdown do have broader support. For example, President Trump's push to quickly deport alleged gang members without giving them a chance to contest those allegations under an 18th century wartime law called the Alien Enemies Act. Almost half of poll respondents say they're in favor of that. 40% of Americans support President Trump's push for mass deportation of everyone in the country without legal status, a slight drop from 44% support 3 months ago. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
For the first time, doctors have treated a baby born with a rare but devastating genetic disorder with a gene-editing therapy tailored to his specific condition. NPR's Rob Stein has more on this medical milestone.
The baby was born at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in August with a genetic disorder that causes toxic ammonia to build up in his body. That can cause brain damage and even death. So doctors raced to tailor-make a gene-editing treatment to correct his genetic defect. And after receiving 3 infusions beginning in February, the child appears to have improved. Doctors say the baby will have to be followed for much longer to know how well the treatment ultimately works, but they hope this is the beginning of using bespoke gene-editing treatments to help children born with very rare genetic disorders. Rob Stein, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is now up nearly 200 points, or nearly 0.5%, at 42,247. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. A bill to ban child marriages in Texas has passed the House and it's on its way to the Senate. News 88.7's government reporter Andrew Snyder says the measure would also void any marriages for people currently under 18.
House Bill 168 would close a loophole that lets children as young as 16 marry if they are legally emancipated. Houston Representative John Rosenthal, the bill's author, told a subcommittee that practice has led to widespread abuses.
There are instances of severe age gaps of these emancipated minors, 10, 20, or even 30 years of age difference between them.
Becca Powell of the nonprofit Unchained at Last was more blunt.
Sex with a 16-year-old is a crime if the perpetrator falls out of the close in age exception, unless the perpetrator first marries the minor. Therefore, a marriage license involving a 16-year-old and a spouse outside the close in age exception is a get-out-of-jail-free card for a would-be child rapist.
The bill passed the House by a vote of 87 to 48. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
Midnight tonight marks the deadline for the Texas House to vote for House bills on their second reading. GOP Representative Brian Harrison of Midlothian took Speaker Dustin Burrows to task for the chamber's slow start in addressing its own business earlier this year.
We gavelled in on January 14th. Why did we not vote on a single bill until April 1st?
That is not a proper parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Harrison, for what purpose?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
There are hundreds of bills on today's calendar. Do any of them eliminate or even greatly reduce property taxes?
That is not a proper parliamentary inquiry.
Part of the reason the House got off to a slow start was because Burrows was not elected as Speaker until mid-January, and he took several weeks to organize the House committees. Tomorrow marks the deadline for the House to hold final votes on House bills this session. It's 90 degrees, mostly sunny, with a high near 94. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, where drivers can compare direct rates using Progressive's rate comparison tool. Customers can see options and rates side by side. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Thanks for joining us this second hour of Hello Houston.
No Ernie?
No problem.
Hey, Ernie, if you're listening, we love you.
Yeah, we love
He'll
you.
be back tomorrow.
He'll be back tomorrow, but boy, oh boy, Frank, did we hit a hot button.
I know. Well, and I think we're going to hit another one, too, with the Supreme Court talking about it right now. And we'll get to that. If you've been watching us on YouTube, some good YouTube comments.
Great
you can certainly
YouTube
do that. You
comments.
go to HelloHouston.org, hit the orange button, and go to Watch Show.
That's
and there
right.
we are on YouTube. And by the way, that becomes a podcast at 1. So you can always go back and watch the whole 2 hours or listen, scrub it if you want to hear certain things. And then at 3 o'clock, it becomes a 40-minute commuter podcast, commuter cut. So apparently 40 minutes is the average time to get home in Houston. Unless you're me. And then it's 4 minutes.
Mine is 12. Mine is 12.
Mine is really about 14.
Not bad. 14.
It depends on the Southwest Freeway, but
Ditto.
Yeah. So
Ditto.
there you go.
But coming up this hour, we have a great rest of the show. Leonard Ohenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, joins us to talk about why Houston and other big cities were sinking, Frank.
And Houston's sinking more than any of them.
Crazy.
I know. I've got a lot of questions for him.
I do too.
You know, Atascocita is an old Indian word meaning swamp.
Okay.
I've always joked that Houston is an old Indian word meaning bigger swamp.
We're the biggest.
We're kind of been on a big swamp. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay. We hit a real hot button, as you said.
did.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security on Tuesday said it has deported more than 500 people and arrested more than 400 suspected undocumented immigrants. I'm assuming this goes to 900, we're talking total, as part of a week-long operation in the Houston area. They did not list the types of crimes that the people were convicted of or the type of immigration violations they are accused of, but did highlight 5 cases of immigrants who were arrested. I clicked on the link, and it's pretty serious stuff. 2 homicide convictions, 1 convicted of sexual exploitation of a minor. So our questions have been about, are these people entitled to any due process? Is that a judicial or an executive branch decision? And if they are entitled to due process, is it just an ICE immigration officer becoming judge and jury and rubber stamping and saying, you're here illegally, boom, 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 you're gone? What's going on there? We're going to get a lawyer here for one of our shows.
That's right. And it is unclear whether this is the largest ICE operation in Texas under the Trump administration. The federal government does not publicly release data on arrest or removals consistently. We want to hear from you. We've been hearing from you all morning. Keep that engagement happening. Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
And following that, the Supreme Court is now hearing this case.
Today, the Supreme Court hears historic arguments as the Trump administration tries to challenge the constitutional provision that guarantees automatic citizenship to all babies born in the U.S. The Constitution's 14th Amendment says, in part, that all persons born in the United States are citizens of this country. On day one, President Trump, in his second term, he issued an executive order barring citizenship for children born in the U.S. whose parents were either not here legally or who were here legally but on temporary basis. What are your thoughts on this challenge? Should they leave it alone, or does the Trump administration have a legitimate argument? Is President Trump trying to redo the Constitution?
Well, the 14th Amendment.
The 14th Amendment.
If you are born on American soil, then you are an American citizen, regardless of whether your parents are or not. However, there is this little judicial jurisdiction, what's called jurisdiction. If you are under the jurisdiction of the United States laws. And President Trump is arguing that if you are from parents who came here illegally
or temporarily here,
then you are not under the jurisdiction of the United States, and therefore this does not apply to you. Now, this was already settled in court in 1898. There was a Chinese immigrant. His parents were not here legally. And so he was born here and claimed that he was, under the 14th Amendment, he was legal. And the Supreme Court said, you're right. That's held for 125 years. And so now President Trump is arguing that, no, why should somebody who just comes here, and let me say this, I have friends who work on the border, and you're from the border.
I'm from the border, right?
And they're doctors, and they have said there are a lot of women who cross the border pregnant, only to go.
They call them anchor babies.
And if you get into the emergency room, we have an obligation to treat you. That's part of the Hippocratic Oath.
I believe that's,
And so if they get into the emergency room pregnant and in labor, they have to allow that woman treatment. And she has that baby. She has no connection to the United States. She has no application for citizenship. She has no relatives that are citizens. She just crossed the border to have that baby in America, so he will or she will be an American citizen. And on the face of it, that seems a little against the spirit of the Constitution, if nothing else.
Well, I think the president's doing quite a few things that feel a little against the spirit. However, speaking of this and where we're at currently, 3 judges ruled that the president's order is blatantly unconstitutional, and 3 appeal courts have refused to unblock the orders while appeals are, again, as Frank stated, happening at the moment. The Trump administration is going to focus on whether federal court judges have the power to rule against and bar enforcement of Trump's executive order nationwide. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
It's already got the phones lighting up. Brian from Rosenberg. I like what you're saying. Give us your comment.
Well, my comment is this. It's really, really simple.
Yep.
It really is. First comment is, number one, if you are an American citizen, you have a right to be in this country. If you are an immigrant applying for American citizenship, it is a privilege, not a right. There are a lot of immigrants that I've worked with over the years that come into this country unregistered to come and commit crimes. And when they commit these crimes, they can go home without any repercussions because nobody knows who they are. So for those people who are here applying to become American citizens, then it is a privilege. Don't think it's a right. Even if you have a child in this country, it's still not a right. It's a privilege to become an American citizen. Yes, I understand if you're born in this country, you have the right of an American citizen. But if your family is not born in this country, guess what? They knew they were illegal, and they put their families in jeopardy, hoping that they didn't get caught, hoping that INS or anyone else who's responsible for removing these people don't know who they are.
Hey,
So
Brian, let me ask Brian a quick question.
Sure.
Brian, do you agree or disagree with Lyndon Johnson's executive order that if a Cuban person can touch American soil, they're a citizen?
You see, listen.
Okay, listen. I'm listening.
One of the most important things that a lot of people don't know and they don't speak about, the American population, the American people, we are a generous and a kind people. We have a spirit of goodwill. We want everyone to do well in this country, but there's a way to do it. Do it the right way, and everything will work out for you. But if you come to this country in a way that doesn't fit and meet the needs, the basic needs of this country, then you're doing it wrong. We only have so many resources. We only have so much money to help people. And it should always be help the Americans first. And since we're so generous, American helps illegals anyway.
Brian, I have a quick question for you, if I may. You mentioned that you work with a lot of immigrants, and you also mentioned that they some of them are criminals. If you're comfortable, could you share what you do?
Well, this was a while ago. So, for example, let me say something to you, and this is what a lot of people don't know. There are a lot of jobs in this country that are dangerous that a lot of people won't do. For example, lead removal, asbestos, working in chemical fields, that if you get exposed to these chemicals, it could cost you your life. So a lot of these companies around the country, what they do is hire illegal immigrants to work in these dangerous fields.
Should they be liable?
A lot of these illegal immigrants, believe it or not, want to do the right thing. But in that group of illegal immigrants, there's a lot of criminals that coming through this country. They call themselves invisibles or ghosts because they know that they can run through this country and cause crime and cause havoc and do whatever the hell they want and then go home.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. You know, it brings up a host of questions.
Yeah.
Are the people who are employing illegal immigrants, are they for prosecution? You know, because that happens a lot, and it happens a lot in Houston. And we say, oh, if you're illegal, you came here the wrong way, then you're a bad person. But you know what? If you need a job and I need help, I'll be glad to give you $4 an hour.
Exactly, and pay you. Exactly.
Yes.
So we also did receive a text that says, I'm curious to know other countries' laws on citizenships. Do they have a similar 14th Amendment? That's Chad MC.
A lot of them do. Canada does. Mexico does. Most of Central America does. A lot of South American countries, same thing. In Europe, if you can prove that you have a bloodline that goes to that country, then, and I don't know how specific. I don't know if it's if your mother's Scottish, you can be Scottish. If your father's Greek, you can be Greek. I don't know how specific it is, but a lot of them have bloodlines in Europe, and then there, you know, I think Pakistan has it, and some other countries.
Sure. We are going to definitely dive into some of these questions that you all have. Keep that engagement coming. Give us a call at 713-440-8870. You know, for me, it's tough. Immigration is so tough from a humanitarian standpoint, and as a Christian, you know, I of course believe in people's rights, but I also, from looking at a policy, We have to have law and order. We have to follow the rules. There are ways to get in this country, and there are processes, and it behooves people to go through the processes, because Brian, even though I didn't necessarily agree with everything he was saying, he brought up a good point about documentation, having your identity, because people come to this country and their families in their other country don't know what's going on with them, don't know where they're at. So it is, from a legal standpoint.
Look at the separation of families.
And the separation of
that
families.
Wouldn't happen if everyone came over legally.
And through that process. Again, 713-440-8870. Juan is on the line from Southwest. Juan, what is your question or comment?
Well, my comment is that the illegal immigration, I came here as a kid back in 1980. I came here illegally. My mom bought me and my sister, she was even younger. I think I was like 4 and she was 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a kid, I didn't know what was going on. You know, we were just moving to a new place or whatever. Well, anyway, I went to school here. I grew up here. And by the grace of God, when Reagan passed that amnesty law, my mom was able to get us papers through that act. And
so you're a dreamer.
I guess basically.
Yeah.
I went. Yes.
So, so you come, you must come to this whole issue, obviously personally. Do you understand that the borders are open a little too freely to people that have committed crimes in other countries?
Juan, how do you feel about the current situation right now?
Well, I mean, yes, there's people that commit crimes that are here illegally. However, that's a minority, I think, of the people that are here illegally.
I think so too.
90% of the people here illegally are hardworking people, man. And, you know, we got good hearts, and
yeah,
and you know, don't forget, a lot of us came through our ancestors to this country, and it wasn't a matter of legal or illegal. You just came and you showed up, and you just said, I'm here. And they said, okay, let's change your name and you can come in. You know, really.
You know, Juan, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today
thanks,
on
Juan.
Hello Houston. And, you know, again, thanks for giving us a call.
Thank you very much.
All right, Frank in Southwest Houston is on the line. Another, you know, there are not a lot of Franks anymore, so I like Franks. Frank, what do you have to say?
You
might want to get that.
True. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. No, that's just the shop phone ringing.
I was like, Frank, somebody's calling you.
No. But hey, look, Frank, I appreciate you too. I think you're a wonderful individual. But hey, you guys are missing a point.
Okay, what is
I don't
it?
need anybody sharing. Okay, a lot of the people that are being deported, from what I'm understanding and my experiences, these people are not necessarily illegals. A lot of them are asylum seekers. This is one of these conservative agenda to try to do this thing where they want to they claim this thing about these people are criminals and all that. It's not a fair thing. So the what is it? The process, the due process, is to allow these people to present their case to the judge or to the legal system, and then if they are found with evidence to support their argument, then they can be deported. I have no problem with that. I have family members that's been deported because they did some really bad things.
Well, Frank, I completely agree with you. And that was my point about Lyndon Johnson allowing Cubans to come to this country to get away from Castro. That's, you can't all go through the proper channels when you're on a boat out of Havana trying to have a decent life.
And I also think that, Frank, again, thank you for giving us a call and sharing your perspective with us. Frank brings up a good point in that the language that is used around this, also due process, the whole point of it is basically how we prove if they entered the country without due process. I mean, it's there to basically really understand why they're here and what they're doing and if they have any other, issues.
And I would love to know the mechanics, as we discussed earlier, how you deport 500 people in a week and give them all a fair shake.
That's right. And again, we invite you to the conversation. Keep those calls coming. 713-440-8870.
I think Sue is on the line. Sue, or where are you from?
From Sugar Land.
Sugar Land.
Hi, Sue. Welcome to Hello Houston. What's your comment or question?
Sue, try to call us back because we don't hear you. Can we go to Greg in Spring?
Greg in Spring.
Greg, what's up?
Well, hey, how are you doing?
Good.
So I am a military veteran. So I joined the Navy in 1980s, right, 85.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I met my wife, and she was from the Philippines. And I came home. I did a fiance visa. My wife came 6 months later. We've been married for almost 40 years. But when she became a citizen 30 years ago, she petitioned her mother to come. And it took 10 years for her mother to get here, but we waited. And then her mother came. And then when her mother got here, mother petitioned my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. And they came. And it took 10 years almost for them to come. But the point I'm making is we waited. We did it the right way. And, it always brings up a conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody just comes and skips the line.
Thank you, Greg. And I would remind people that President Trump's wife came from Slovenia and brought her parents through chain migration. So the very man who is all about deporting everybody, his own family came from another part of the world.
Again, thank you for the calls. Thank you for the engagement. Keep that coming, 713-440-8870. Coming up on Hello Houston, Leonard Ohenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School, joins us to talk about why Houston and other big cities are sinking. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, it's been a month since President Trump declared Liberation Day, imposing tariffs on friends and foes alike and launching a full-blown trade war with China. So are you feeling the effects of the tariffs yet, whether it's higher prices on things you buy or trouble making ends meet in your own business? That's our question, and we're taking your calls next time on The Middle.
You can hear The Middle coming up tonight. It's on at 8 p.m.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply. Support comes from Children's Museum of Houston, presenting Faithful Friends, an exhibit exploring understanding and friendship, where kids discover that while faiths and beliefs may differ, kindness and friendship are universal. More at cmhouston.org.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
All of the biggest U.S. cities, hi Frank, U.S. cities are sinking. That's according to a new study published last week in the journal Nature Cities. Another key detail to come out of the study: Houston is the fastest sinking city in the country, with more than 40% of the city sinking at about more than 5 millimeters a year.
A quarter of an inch.
Quarter of an inch. And around 12% is sinking at double that rate.
Half an inch.
But
So,
why?
understand.
Why is Houston sinking faster than other metropolitan areas? And what can be done to slow down the sinking? To tell us more, we welcome Leonard Ohenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. Leonard, welcome to Hello Houston.
Do you hear us? Leonard?
You know, I know that Frank has a lot of scientific questions for Leonard, and you were already going off about all the little things that you wanted to talk to him about.
Well, I hope we can get. Can you hear us yet, Leonard?
Yes, I can hear you
Got
now.
it.
Okay,
Yep, there you
we were
are.
just saying that Houston is the fastest sinking city. At 40%, it's going down at about 1/4 of an inch a year. Some areas are going down at about 1/2 an inch a year. Is that what your study showed?
Yes, that is exactly what it showed. That's a good way to summarize the findings for Houston.
Okay, let me ask you.
Go ahead.
First of all, was this done with satellite and radar? Is this how this was? Are you looking at subsidence? Yeah. Subsidence means sinking, so just fancy word for sinking. But
Yeah.
but so all right, is the satellite that you're using, is it a polar orbital satellite or is it a geostationary satellite?
It's a near orbit satellite, so not exactly. It's not geostationary, so it's near polar orbit.
Okay, so it's about 500 miles above the Earth. Would that be about right?
Yes.
And it goes around, and you take these pictures. So how many years did you take these pictures? Because you haven't been taking them for that long.
No. So the satellite that we use for this study specifically, it's called the Sentinel-1 satellite, and it's operated by the European Space Agency, and it has been collecting measurements since 2014 to
Okay,
date.
so a little
And
better than 10 years.
yes, exactly. But there are other satellites that have been operating for longer, but for this study, we focus just on the Sentinel-1 images.
So for 10 years, you're suggesting that some places have been sinking at as much as 5 inches?
Yes, that is exactly
I mean, it
the
doesn't
case.
feel like a 5-inch drop here in Houston. Not that we don't have potholes and freeway issues, but that seems like a lot to me because that would suggest at the same rate we've been sinking since 1980. We should have lost about 30 inches by now.
Not necessarily. If you look at the map specifically for Houston, you would see some areas where you do not have 5 millimeters per year. You have smaller than that, for example. And I think all of this comes into play because of groundwater management issues that Houston has employed in some areas. So you have some areas that the land is stable. The good thing about the satellite data is you do not just have one single framework for the entire city. You have multiple rates for different parts of the city. So you have places where it's sinking really fast and you have places where it's stable.
Yeah, I saw the map,
So
for sure.
I know Frank has a lot of very scientific questions for you, Leonard, but I just need to know, should we be worried? That's my big concern here.
Of course we should.
What should we be worried about?
The risk from subsidence comes in two fronts. The first is the risks to infrastructure. And the second, for Houston, that still has some coastal areas in the city, there's a worry from relative sea level rise and also just flooding in itself. And so you have two dynamics happening when you discuss relative sea level rise or sea level rise issues. The oceans are rising and now the land is dropping. And so you have areas that would be below the water sooner than anticipated if you just have the rising seas alone. And for the risks to infrastructure, subsidence, particularly when they occur unevenly over the extent of an infrastructure, can cause cracking on infrastructure, which can damage roads, bridges, and even buildings.
Well, sure. I mean, if the land is sinking. So let me get this straight again one more time. So the satellite's going around the Earth, and it's shooting a radar beam, which is kind of like shooting a flashlight at a mirror. You know how the light bounces
So
back?
you're measuring.
And so, so you're shooting the radar beam down, and through that measurement of that radar beam, you're looking at how fast it shoots back or with what energy it shoots back to determine subsidence or sinking in certain areas?
Yes, you're measuring the time difference between the time it takes to bounce on the Earth and return back. So the time difference essentially.
And
But we're not doing this. Oh, go ahead.
No, have there been areas where, like, you know that this works? Like, for instance, you take a flat Earth, and it's not sinking, and you dig a big hole, and then you show that it is sinking. I mean, is there proven experiments to show that this works? It's not. You're not just guessing.
This has been used severally for different applications, from earthquake to land subsidence issues for urban areas, like we've seen. And the good thing is we have in situ measurements. There are things called GPS, which measures how the land is sinking, and those are stationed on the ground. And so what we do is we compare those measurements with what we get from the satellites to validate what we get.
Now, many people are familiar with coastal cities sinking. We've heard of this kind of phenomenon happening. Is Houston exactly a coastal city? So, I mean, why do you think we're sinking? I know you talked a little bit about, being in the area that we are, but why are we sinking faster than any other city? I feel like there are other major coastal cities.
Well, some cities are actually coming up, but I would say, why are we sinking faster than Miami?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the sinking is not because it's a coastal city. Sinking has to do with, firstly, the type of geology that the ground is overlain on. So if you have like very soft material where the city is built on, you tend to sink faster.
Yeah, not us.
Another reason. Another reason is also because of extraction of resources. And so extraction of groundwater or extraction of oil and gas, those two can accelerate how much a city sinks, which Houston has a little bit of everything.
Well, we've talked about aquifers that supply water, that they're underground. A lot of them are going empty. So that's going to be part of it. And fracking, I guess, would also add to some sinking of the ground. Would that be correct?
Yes, exactly. So you have a combination of all of these factors.
So we're lucky we haven't built subways, then we'd really be in trouble.
Yeah, but I think the good thing is it's not all terrible news. The first thing we need to know is you need to know that you are sinking, which is the first
right.
The first thing you need.
But Leonard, when you say sinking, and Frank, you guys educate me here. Do you mean we are literally sinking?
Yeah, he means you're literally sinking.
Okay.
It's a little bit every year. Okay. So cumulatively, it adds up over a decade or a few years.
So you were talking to us about the factors. You said number one.
Oh, yes. So number one is the soft material, and the second is the extraction of oil and gas. But I was saying that also the fact that you know and can measure these rates of sinking means it's something that can be managed potentially in the future. And so I'm not saying stop building or stop extracting groundwater or oil and gas from the ground. No, that is not what the study is saying. But it can be managed. It can be mitigated. There are policies that can be put in place to reduce how much the rate of sinking is. Like I mentioned, Houston is a really good example of this because in some places the rates used to be faster, but now it has been reduced significantly.
We're talking with Dr. Leonard Ohenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. So some cities, Leonard, are actually going up, right?
Yes. On average.
Yeah, what cities and why? How do these other cities get to go up?
Yeah.
It's a combination of different factors. The cities that we see on average are going up is Jacksonville, Memphis, and San Jose in California. Those are the three cities that have average rate of uplift. But I should mention that those are very negligible almost. At the rate at which they're going up is about 0.2, and so not huge numbers like you have in Houston of the opposite. And some of these reasons is just because of natural recharge. Some of these cities lie along river channels where surface water can infiltrate into groundwater and help recharge the aquifers, and that helps. So if extracting the water makes the city go down, then adding more water would make the city come up.
To your point about coastal cities, and you might find this really interesting, Celeste, because I looked at your map, and the red areas were the most sinking, and then the lighter colors were not as much. And if you sort of drew a visual line from Tomball to Katy toward downtown, not Sugar Land, So kind of go to the northwest and into town. That's sort of the worst sinking. And then as you go toward the coast, it's not as bad. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Which I would imagine you'd be the other way around.
Right. You think, because it's a little swamp. I mean, there are areas out toward Baytown that have subsided considerably. I mean, there are swamp areas that used to not be simply because of just beach erosion and water intrusion. But this isn't the same thing. This isn't what you're talking about.
No. So this comes into play again as to some management policies that have already been put in place. I spoke to the subsidence district, which is in Houston for Texas, and they mentioned there are a lot of policies regards to groundwater extraction that have been put in place in Houston to help manage the subsidence. And so there is a body for subsidence in Houston and in Texas specifically that helps to manage this.
Yeah, there are other cities in Texas. Would you like to name those off the top of your head? I think
yes, Dallas is another one. Fort Worth is
good.
another one.
We don't want to sink if Dallas doesn't sink. If we're sinking, Dallas darn well better be sinking. So Dallas and who else?
San Antonio was another one.
Yep.
And I think Austin was
of course,
the last one.
double-decker highways and all that traffic will do it to you. They have they have big aquifers out in Austin. That's the issue out there is the aquifers that are actually drying up out there. I would imagine that's a big problem.
Okay. Yeah. The interesting thing was the three fastest cities were in Texas. Okay. So Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth are the three fastest.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been, I'm a meteorologist from way back when, so that's why I have all these questions. You have no idea who I am.
If you can't tell, Leonard, Frank is nerding out right now.
Yeah. So thank you. I found your study really, really interesting, and keep up the great work. And so thank you so much for being a part of our day. We really appreciate it.
That is Leonard Ohenhen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Leonard Ohenhen is a postdoctoral researcher at the Columbia Climate School's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at Columbia University.
All right, you want to get back to immigration?
I tell you what, it has definitely hit a hot button. We have been getting a ton of engagement. Again, you can give us a call at 713-440-8870. We did receive some off-air comments from callers. One said, Flynn from South Park says, ICE agents can clear you if you have your social security number.
So does that mean you have to have your number and they can look on a computer, or
do you have to have your actual card?
I know.
I don't carry my card with me.
And no.
That's tough. And then we did get a comment about another topic we were talking about a Democrat who is bringing up the impeachment.
One Democrat.
Yep. is already using the I word, impeachment.
Yes.
John from Midtown says, I'm dumbfounded by the Democratic Party. I was a Democrat, but I can't bring myself to vote for a single Democrat. I'm frustrated with the Republicans, but the Democrats have nothing to offer for anyone. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. You're just going to have to give them a chance to get their act together and see where it goes.
They need to do it fast. We also received a text. I'm curious to know other countries' laws on citizenships. Do they have a similar 14th Amendment? Again, that was Chad MC. We
talked about
earlier.
that. Canada, Mexico, a lot of Central and South America. In Europe, if you can prove bloodline, you can get a citizenship. In fact, I know a few people that have done that.
And, we are going to definitely, I know, Frank, you mentioned that you know an immigration lawyer. We are going to be getting in experts to help us understand
this whole issue.
Because it is complex and we have thoughts. Also, Bob from the Museum District said, the real problem is that Congress has not done reform since 1986.
I like this text. I don't know how it would stand, but I like it. Whether you think undocumented people deserve due process or not is irrelevant. The Constitution grants all people within our borders the same rights given by God, not the government. You either believe in the Constitution or you don't. Either you believe in human rights or you don't. Americans need to ask themselves if they really want to live in a country where human rights are conditional. I don't know who sent us that text, but I agree with that.
Well, it's amazing, Frank, that I think that I'm going to take this view out quite a bit. And when we look at what is happening right now, we have a president who is really questioning our Constitution and our constitutional laws and looking at our government branches. And, I don't believe this has happened before. However, I do think we are watching and seeing a historical administration come in and push the boundaries and really see if our Constitution and our democracy will stand to this push of potential change and questioning.
Well, and what I'm frustrated by is that the defense of that you just said is constantly the American people wanted it. They voted me in. They voted him in. They gave Donald Trump a decisive victory. But when you start to ask some of those people, they say, well, that's not quite what I voted for. I voted for change. I voted for strength. I want our country to be respected around the world. I get all of that. But they didn't vote for somebody to push these boundaries quite like they're being pushed.
Excellent point. Coming up on Hello Houston, MD Anderson President Dr. Peter W.T. Pisters spoke with us about a revolutionary donation to end childhood cancer. That's coming up next.
Pilots with mental health concerns are in a tough position because seeking treatment can mean losing their job.
As I talked to more and more pilots, I really saw that this was a pattern. Pilots just didn't seek care, or if they did, they were very, very careful about hiding it.
The mental health of pilots, that's next time on Think.
You can hear Think. It's coming up tonight at 10 o'clock.
It's one thing to love public radio, but it's a special thing to support it. Consider this. If you've got a car you don't need anymore, or you've got one that's simply too expensive to repair, you can arrange to donate it to Houston Public Media. We take any kind of vehicle in any condition. It's easy for you, pickup is free, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Visit HoustonPublicMedia.org/cars to learn more. And thanks.
Hi, I'm Ken Burns, and I'm thrilled to invite you to a special evening with Houston Public Media. On June 5th, join me at the Hobby Center as we preview our latest series set to release this November.
Tickets available at HoustonPublicMedia.org.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, focused on delivering tailored electricity plans by time of day usage, offering residential electricity plans through its online portal. Details at chariotenergy.com.
Support comes from the Near Northwest Management District with new commercial construction, more than 350 acres of green space, parks, and sports complex. More information at nnmd.org. At the intersection of innovation.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Earlier in the show, you heard our conversation with Nancy and Rich Kinder about the creation of the Kinder Children's Cancer Center. Ernie and I also spoke with MD Anderson President Dr. Peter W.T. Pisters yesterday about the creation of the Cancer Center, which we will share with you now.
Earlier this year, Texas Children's Hospital and the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center announced a groundbreaking collaboration to help end childhood cancer. The two institutions are joining forces to launch a cancer center that will combine the expertise of both hospitals. Late yesterday, we learned more about another key piece in this partnership when the institutes announced a $150 million gift from the Kinder Foundation to create the Kinder Children's Cancer Center. It's one of the largest philanthropic donations in Texas medical center history. With us to talk about this joint venture and the gift is MD Anderson President Peter W.T. Pisters. Hello there, sir.
It's great to be with all of you, and this is an exciting day for all of us, including children and families in Houston, Texas, and across the country.
An amazing gift.
Let's talk a little bit about how this collaboration came about. What was the impetus to getting this going?
It's a really interesting story that actually goes back to the pandemic. And if you remember how the TMC leaders really collaborated, that collaboration generated a lot of relationship development. As a byproduct of that, Mark Wallace, who is the CEO next door at Texas Children's, and I became very close. And interestingly, I invited Mark to lunch at MD Anderson. And over lunch, we talked about the possibility of teaming up. At the end of the lunch, we looked at each other, we shook hands, and we said, let's do it.
That's amazing. I'm fascinated by this gift, but I'm curious, how will it work? How will both institutions be able to come together, and how does this joint meeting improve the care and the future of research?
Well, I think the important dimensions of this, if we break it down, are that the clinical programs that we have, our Children's Cancer Hospital and the amazing oncology program that they have for children at Texas Children's, will be unified. The research effort will be unified so that the researchers that are present here at MD Anderson that focus on pediatric cancer and those at Texas Children's Hospital and Baylor College of Medicine will be unified. They will come together with 45 PhD scientists focused on the fundamental drivers of pediatric cancer. The educational programs will be unified so that there'll be instantly the greatest educational program to train specialists in pediatric oncology in the world. A big part of this is our desire to work together to build a new building, a cancer center for children that will be in the Texas Medical Center. If you know the Texas Medical Center, that will be at 6700 Main Street, right across from Texas Children's Hospital. We will demolish a hotel that the TCH team has acquired. And on the site of a hotel and a parking lot that's there now, we're going to build a magnificent cancer center for children and put a bridge across to connect to Texas Children's Hospital and all the amazing specialists that work there. When we come together like this, we can do great things. When we create a purpose-built environment, it's going to be spectacular.
A little inside baseball here on this, though, is I think the layman looks at it as in the Texas Medical Center, you're all collaborating all the time. How is this different, and what's the improvement by having you jointly create something as opposed to both of you doing your research in your individual organizations?
Well, over the years, we've learned a lot about how to foster interinstitutional collaboration. We have many examples of that here at MD Anderson that include Breakthrough Cancer initiative that brings 5 institutions together to support young researchers in 4 cancers. Our partnership with UT Austin, which is very impactful, our partnership with Rice University as examples. In this case, the best way to think about it for community members is that Hospital A is going to work with Hospital B to build Hospital C. Hospital C will be dedicated to children with cancer and will be designed specifically to be best in the world. In that facility will be an environment that is really dedicated to children with cancer and their families. As we do that, we recognize that when we create Hospital C, we're going to create a new company, and that new company will have a joint operating board that will be made up 50-50 of individuals who come from Texas Children's Hospital and MD Anderson Cancer Center. So with the new company creation, new hospital building, and the governance framework that has 50-50 representation, we can see that we're going to be able to do something that's very, very different than anything that's ever been done in the Texas Medical Center.
Dr. Pisters, one of the key parts of this collaboration is funding, and it sounds like it's going to be a fabulous collaboration. How transformational is this $150 donation from the Kinder Institute, the Kinder Foundation, excuse me?
Well, when we look at the Kinder Foundation, or Rich and Nancy Kinder as Houstonians, we can see their long-standing commitment to make Houston a better place. You see that as you go through the city. You see that in parks. You see that in art. You see that in their commitment to Rice University. You see that in a myriad of ways. Nancy Kinder has been a member of our Board of Visitors for 26 years. And now we can see the Kinder Foundation really thinking about how they can improve healthcare for children with cancer, not just here in Houston, but across Texas and around the nation. Their gift and where they sit in the pantheon of philanthropic givers across Texas or in Houston really establishes a catalyst. And it's our desire to use their gift as a catalyst to bring other families together to make this a reality for us. As you can imagine, a gift of this size is an amazing foundation upon which to build. We're super excited to see this gift. We're grateful to Rich and Nancy, and we're excited to really use this as a springboard to bring other philanthropists forward who want this to become a reality.
I would assume any fundraising person listening right now would be very curious what these conversations were like, and what was the aha moment you think that made Rich and Nancy say, let's do it, let's take the plunge?
Well, with the greatest amount of humility possible, I can describe the inside baseball aspects of this for you. We went to visit with Rich and Nancy, and it was Debbie Sukin, the CEO of Texas Children's Hospital, and myself, and Park Shaper, the Texas Children's Hospital chair of their board of trustees. So the three of us went together, and as we heard from Park, if you're a philanthropist and you hear that Debbie and Peter want to come to see you, you know it's got to be something big. And when we sat with them and we cast the vision of working together and we showed them the potential associated with this, and we talked about the research synergies, the patient care, and the possibility of taking this program with their name onto the chassis of MD Anderson's national network, where we have partnerships in Phoenix, in New Orleans, in Jacksonville, in Philadelphia, in Indianapolis, in Chicago. Imagine that program taken to all those venues, and the ability to create a national brand associated with eradicating pediatric cancer. That, I think, captivated them. They saw the potential associated with that, and we're just so grateful that we're aligning now, and we have the event that we'll have this afternoon.
I think oftentimes people have this misconception that childhood cancer is the same as adult cancer. So why do you feel the need that what type of need is this going to fill for not just Houstonians, but like you said, Americans across the world?
Well, childhood cancer is a very interesting spectrum of diseases. As you might know, oftentimes there are genetic causes that we can really understand with greater clarity or research specifically around. There are probably also important environmental factors that maybe we don't understand that work together, perhaps with genetic changes that might be present at birth. We see that as really fundamentally different than the fundamental drivers of adult cancer. We also know that from the pharmaceutical industry perspective, pediatric cancer is a relatively small market. What's important for them is that we really bring together a large number of patients, that we can create gigantic clinical trials with the volumes that we will see, and that we can present to industry partners an amazing opportunity for drug discovery for children. That is what I see as the tremendous potential associated with building a program of this size and this scale.
How will what we learn in the Children Cancer Institute translate or help with adult cancer? Do you see a connection there? And is this helping? Is this another piece in helping the work you're currently doing?
I definitely do. I think first, if we look at the spirit and the details behind the collaboration, I see many, many opportunities for us to see other kinds of interinstitutional collaboration. I think institutions can do things, obviously, that individuals cannot. It's also a reality that interinstitutional collaboration between partners who share a vision for the future that includes a better future for humanity. That is exactly what we want to see happening as a byproduct of this. I think other institutions will see what we're doing, and they'll try to emulate what we've done here in Houston.
At this point, it seems like a dream fulfilled. I know it's the early steps of it. What do you dream for next? Where do you go from here?
Well, as my team will tell you, I do not have a shortage of ideas. And so it's a process of carefully sequencing them, putting them into the strategic plan, thinking about the execution framework. A big part of our commitment includes the reality that the demographic changes that are occurring in our state are a signal that we need to respond to. When we see our state really now over 30 million people, we see the magnificence of our economy, we see the needs of the state in terms of education and healthcare. We're thinking about how we can take the excellence at MD Anderson and bring it on a statewide platform. You may be aware that we're building a campus in Austin, Texas. And just give you one example of what's next, we're in deep conversations about the possibility of bringing MD Anderson and Texas Children's Hospital to the Permian Basin region. If that were to happen, with these two iconic organizations working hand in hand, you could see how this partnership extends our ability to make life better for Texans.
Okay. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Truly enlightening and exciting, and quite a moment for you folks and for all of Houstonians. And as you said before we began this interview, not just Houstonians, Texans, and the whole country, and globally this impact could be felt.
Absolutely. It's been fantastic to be with you.
Thank you. MD Anderson President Dr. Peter W.T. Pisters, again, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
All right, why is it when Ernie's not here, it feels like he is?
That's right. And that's it for Hello Houston today. Join us again tomorrow.
I know, we're going to have a great time tomorrow. Friday, we kick off
Friday, baby.
Big time. We'll talk about current obsessions.
We
didn't get it today. We're going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, and Ernie will be back.
Yeah, he always, Eurovision is his current obsession, trust me.
That's right. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. right here on News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support Houston Public Media by donating a vehicle you no longer need. We'll take it in any condition. It's free to you, easy to do, and it could mean hundreds of